What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Debbie Royale YouTube channel. We are here to talk Week 10 of the NFL. We're going to talk about Bijan Robinson, sadly. We're going to talk about the 49ers and their three-game losing streak and what that kind of looks like this week. We've got a top 5 in the NFL draft. We've also got some game previews, and we've got our Against the Grain fantasy starts. So make sure you like and subscribe while the intro is playing, and we'll catch you on the other side. All right, guys, another week in the books, and the lead here is Bijan Robinson. There's been a lot of talk on fantasy Twitter, in every fantasy show that you listen to, with Arthur Smith and the Atlanta Falcons beat reporters. The question here: can you start Bijan? And the caveat: can you start him with confidence? Are you confident when you play Bijan? Furthering that he's only averaging 8.4 points per game since week 6. That does factor in the game where he played just a few snaps because of an illness. I still don't believe that, but his snaps have kind of varied week to week. Algiers getting a lot of the short yardage touches and things like that. Bijan hasn't been very good for fantasy. So, Randy, can you start him with confidence?
I think with confidence, I'll say no. It's just very disheartening. We know the united hatred for Arthur Smith for very good reasoning, but it's just very the best way for me to say it is I think I'm confident in Bijan. If he has 12 to 15 touches, he can explode and dominate a game, and that's all he's getting. It's just he's such an elite talent that he can do it. They're taking him out of the goal line. He's only got one goal line carry, and he capitalized on it. Like, he's a good player. He's the most efficient player in their offense. They're just not using him the best way. It's week 10. Running backs, especially the rookie running backs, the second half of the year tend to get more touches, explode more. Everyone that I've heard talk about this so far is given the Jonathan Taylor comp, where we were about this time of the year and we were like, just, you got to sit him. And that's where I'm kind of at with Bijan, where I just won't sit him because I know what can happen with even 2 touches with Bijan Robinson. So I'm going to play him, and if I lose, I lose. I would rather lose playing the guy I drafted this highly, spent a 101, in Dynasty, all this kind of stuff. I'm going to lose on that sword.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So his highest touch total of the year was 23 touches, and that was back in week 2. He had 19 carries that game, 4 catches. Since then, over the last 2 weeks, 11 touches 2 weeks ago and 13 touches last week. I do the caveat with it's coming and he'll explode soon is they do have a bye week after this week. This week they do get Arizona. You mentioned it before, not very good against opposing running backs. They do give up 129 yards on the ground, and this is a good rushing offense, whether it's Bijan or Algier, who has been good at running the football, just not as good as Bijan. So I think this could be a big week for him. And I do want to say there are a lot of teams on bye once again this week. I think 4, right? We've got 4 teams on bye. So it's not like you're sitting Bijan. It's just what can you expect from Bijan? And I think this week I'm leaning RB2 production with, back in RB1 upside. But who knows? This could be the 3 touchdown week for Bijan. And then everyone's kind of relaxed, not grilling Arthur Smith so he doesn't have to, cook fantasy football players across the nation constantly like he does. So we'll see.
Yeah. Like you said, Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, Eagles all on bye. This is another huge bye week where a lot of our fantasy assets are gone. Now, that doesn't, include a lot of running backs necessarily, but still, Bijan, I think, has to be in your lineup no matter what.
Yeah, for sure. All right. We are going to get into the 49ers losing streak and preview a little bit of their game a little early before the game previews. But before that, I do want to mention our Patreon. You can see it on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on the podcast, just head to patreon.com/the Debbie Royale. We have combined Devy and Dynasty rankings, which mixes college prospects with current Dynasty players, kind of giving you an edge in Dynasty or Devy leagues. We have the College Football Manifesto, which, that's from earlier this season, but it's still a pretty good asset if you're a college football fan. We also have an active Discord where people are asking start-sit questions and things like that. We'll also have a ton of NFL draft content. I started watching offensive tackles today, and it was so fun. I had a lot of fun. So we'll be getting into that a ton. And that stuff's going to be exclusive for patrons. Most of it's going to be under the $3 per month tier. So make sure you check that out. Once again, head to patreon.com/the to join today. All right, let's get over to the San Francisco 49ers. They're in the midst of a 3-game losing streak coming off a bye week. They play the Jaguars this week. This is one of our game previews. So I just want to, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the game when we get to it. But the Jaguars these teams are kind of trending in different directions, right? The Jaguars were ascending as they headed into their bye week. 49ers were on a little bit of a descent. They acquired Chase Young in the meantime, so that could also factor into the ceiling of this team. But Randy, is there trouble in San Francisco? Do you think they kind of work out of this rut this week?
This is a tough one. The Jaguars tend to play a lot of quick games, especially against a good defense like this. So I'm not quite sure how much effectiveness Bosa and Chase can have against him. And that's where I'm kind of being safe with it. 2 weeks to prepare. It's definitely not a guarantee with a great team in San Francisco. I just think they're back to reality. And people are back to reality on Purdy, to where he's a good system quarterback. He's going to get you a bunch of wins, but doesn't mean you win every week. And when you have a good opponent in the Jaguars, definitely doesn't mean you're guaranteed a win coming out of the bye.
Yeah, I think that's a reason that I feel so confident in the Philadelphia Eagles at this point, is because they have a quarterback that, while he is a system quarterback, as all players are, Jalen Hurts is much, much better than Brock Purdy. So that's kind of where I wanted to head with this. I heard a stat on the Athletic Football Show for their preview this week. The Jaguars were playing just so much cover 3 before their bye week. I think it was like 58% out of base personnel they were in cover 3. Cover 3 is where, Brock Purdy can kind of find the holes. I don't think they're going to play a lot of cover 3 this week. I think they're going to come out of the bye week and they're going to say, okay, you might kill us on the ground a little bit, but that'll slow the game down. We'll do our quick game thing. We'll move the ball. I think this is going to be a good game. We'll get into it in the previews later, but I don't know if they lose a 4th game in a row, especially coming out of the bye. I mean, the Seahawks might win that division at that point. So
I don't know about that. I think they'll correct. It's just, this is definitely, you want an Arizona matchup out of the bye, to get back to normal.
Yeah, for sure. And they're heading to Jacksonville, which I think is kind of significant as well. Okay. The last thing before we get into those game previews, we have a decent top 5 of the NFL draft right now, but there's a lot of shakeups. So the Bears and Panthers played on Thursday night earlier this week. That put the Bears back in front for the first overall pick, but also kicked their own pick down to 5. The current order would be Panthers, but the Bears have that pick. Cardinals at 2, Giants at 3, Patriots at 4, and then the Bears at 5. We're going to do a little exercise and predict what the top 5 will be when the season ends. Randy, give me your top 5 once the season ends.
Yeah, so I do have one of these teams switching, and the order kind of moving around a bit. I have the number 1 pick staying as it is, the Panthers pick over the Bears. I actually have the Bears getting the 2nd pick as well. I do have confidence with Fields coming back. I think this offense has become a little bit more efficient, simpler. I hope they do the same things, let Fields actually be able to sit in the pocket and run like they are with Bijan. So I'm hoping that they can win some games, but they also, they have a good amount of very tough opponents. They have a good amount of divisional matchups left. So those are, a bit toss-ups. This division's looking good too down the stretch here. I think they struggle. Rams, I have switching in here for the Patriots. I don't know how long Stafford's going to be out. Carson Wentz, I have no faith in. Kyrie Williams is still out for right now. This offense looked pitiful. I understand there was a different quarterback, but I think they lose a few games here. They're in a tough division. We just talked about San Francisco and Seattle being good opponents. I think they lose a lot of the games there. Giants at 4 and the Cardinals at 5. I have a bump with Kyle coming back. I think he's going to be able to win a few games after he gets back into rhythm. And with teams like the Patriots, coaching, I think they win a few. They've looked better the last few weeks, getting Pop Douglas more involved, Hunter Henry back involved, running game a little bit better. Stuff's starting to work out for them. I don't think they make the playoffs or anything, but I think they unfortunately get out of the running for the top quarterbacks.
I think that's fair. I have my gripes with the Bears picking second overall simply because, if only because, say the offense doesn't take those steps that you mentioned, that defense is punching above its weight right now. Those rookie D tackles are playing really well. I think the Matt Eberflus, goofy ass coach too. He called it the Tez effect, where Montez Sweat has opened things up so they can generate some pressures. I think that's going to be good for them down the stretch, especially against teams with good offensive lines. But I do think that there are a couple of winnable games on their schedule, which is why my top 5 here. So I have the Giants finishing with the worst record. I think with Daniel Jones out, Saquon Barkley just constantly in and out of the lineup, Tyrod Taylor out, like there's nothing good going for the Giants right now. And I don't really have faith in Brian Dable to, squeak out some wins. I just don't see that happening personally. Panthers at 2, so the Bears would pick 2 overall. New England at 3, if only because, so I think they do beat the Giants, clearly. So that'll get them to 3 wins, right? They're at 2 wins right now. Colts game, I think the Colts can pull this one out this weekend. Chargers, Steelers probably beat them. Chiefs probably beat them. Broncos on Christmas Eve is a toss-up. So it's kind of like I don't feel confident picking them anywhere, so that's why I have them here. Cardinals at 4, if only because I think Kyler definitely elevates the offense. I think James Conner coming back is big as well, which we haven't really mentioned a whole lot. I just don't have faith in this defense to stop anyone, so I still think they're going to lose some games. And then the Broncos here at 5. I just don't have faith that what we've seen from the Broncos the last couple of weeks when they've won, I just don't know that sticks. I know they beat the Chiefs, but things like that happen even for bad football teams. And then I would have the Bears 6th for what it's worth. So.
Yeah, and I do think, I think the Panthers are going to win another game. I think pretty much everyone here besides the Panthers is going to be like 5 or 6 wins, and we're going to have a pretty big, okay, last week of the season, who wins this matchup? What's the tiebreaker? And that's why mine's kind of the way it is. I do think the Bears win a few, and I don't think the Rams won't win a game when Stafford's back. I think when Tyrod's back, the Giants can win a game or 2, and like I said, Kyler coming back, I think they can win a few. So that's why mine's a little bit awkward. I do think if the Bears continue this trajectory, I would be comfortable switching them with New England or Denver there. Or, we've had so many quarterback injuries, it could happen again, and someone else is screwed.
I think the one team that we haven't mentioned, too, as a potential to squeak in here would be the Packers, actually. They looked better with Aaron Jones looking healthy last week, but they haven't inspired a ton of confidence either that they can pull out wins down the stretch here. So I think they could squeak into the top 5. I don't think they're in contention for the first pick, though, personally. Yeah. All right. Anything else on this? I'm so excited to start talking about the NFL draft, dude. We're at the time of the season where it's like I'm into the 2024 draft for sure.
Yeah, I also may have looked at a few tackles this week. Being bored. I enjoy Joe Alt looks great. There's a few it's honestly a pretty big class that could go up and down. There's so many skill positions. I'm very excited. It's another, especially with quarterbacks, at least the 2 at the top receiver. It's another reshaping the landscape type of early draft, and that's always exciting.
Yeah, a lot of good, fantasy football relevant selections that will happen in the first round this year. So we'll definitely talk about that. I think this show will certainly transition to something like that. We'll narrow out the details as that time comes. So All right, let's get into our game previews. The first one we're going to talk about is that 49ers and Jaguars game. The 49ers are 3-point road favorites, and the over-under in this one is 44.5. As I mentioned, both teams coming off of a bye. Could be some curveballs thrown, and we talked about the trajectories. The Jaguars were looking better. The 49ers were looking worse. I guess my question, this seems like one of those games that you play everyone, but then you look at the over-under at 44.5. It's kind of one of the lower ones because both of these defenses have been playing well. Are you hesitant on anyone? Deebo Samuel is expected back. It seems like everyone's at full health except for Zay Jones.
Yeah, Zay Jones being out. So, I mean, I think I'm always hesitant on Calvin Ridley right now. He's been super boom or bust. ETN could have a tough day, but I think the workload will get him over the top. McCaffrey, you're always playing. Ayuk having the first game with Debo back, really. He hasn't really done anything since week 1. Hopefully that changes. He's had some tough matchups. Debo, I think you had to play him. Kittle, Anytime Debo's back, it hurts him. So I think the most confident people I'm in is McCaffrey and Kirk. And then past that, it's like, I mean, I have to play everyone. They should be decent. I don't think anyone has a major day, though.
Which quarterback finishes with more fantasy points?
Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. So I also would go Lawrence, and the reason for that is because I think the Jaguars are going to win this football game. I think, being a home dog, I think this team has turned the corner. I think they're going to have – there is a method to beating this 49ers offense now, and I think the Browns kind of exposed that a little bit. Teams have kind of copied that. The Bengals put them even more in a blender, I think, than the Browns did. So I just think it's as easy as – sure, the 49ers will make some adjustments, but I think the Jaguars win this maybe by a field goal, and I think we hit the over, but just barely.
I'll take the 49ers in the under. I think they're able to kill the clock, which further emphasizes the not loving anyone's performance. But I think McCaffrey will do enough against this defense to just carry him. He's been MVP caliber electric. I think he can continue that and limit the Brock Purdy damage, but a very, very low scoring affair. I think 17-13.
Okay. Interesting. I think more like I think I was at like 21-24, which would
you hit over.
Just over. Yeah, just over. So okay. Next game, Detroit Lions at the Los Angeles Chargers. Over under in this one is 48.5. The Lions are also 3-point road favorites. Teams, Lions coming off a bye, right? They didn't play last week. Did they play last week?
No, it was off a bye.
Played last week. Yeah. Because we're getting David Montgomery back, and that's the big news here is this is the first time in the history of the Detroit Lions that they have Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, and David Montgomery. And I want to know who you think is the odd man out of that group. Jamison doesn't know. Who is the odd man out of the other guys?
So besides the people that you listed,
yeah.
So you're asking who the odd man out is between Gibbs and Montgomery, basically, and because it's never Laporta. It's never Laporta. He's ingrained.
Well, I think you can make
he's what Dan Campbell thought he could be in life. He is going to thrive through that man.
That's fair. So yeah, do you think Montgomery comes back and just takes a ton of work?
Man, I kind of do. I think Montgomery gets 15 to 20 touches pretty easily. I think Gibbs, we've seen him be able to do a lot with the same amount. I think he does get the same amount of about 10 to 16 touches this week. Obviously through the passing game, this is a pain management issue for Montgomery. He's clearly, it's a rib issue. He wouldn't be out there with how well Gibbs is playing if he wasn't full go. And when he's full go, he's been the workhorse. He's been the lead back, taking the brunt of it and letting Gibbs make the explosive plays. So I think Gibbs might have more yards than Montgomery, but I think Montgomery gets at least one touchdown. So for me, I think that the lock that you have to play Montgomery, and I think you could still play Gibbs because he should get enough work. And even like week 1, he didn't get a lot of work, but he had 2 opportunities that should have been touchdowns and just didn't work that way. And it's been working that way of late. So I think he can keep it going. It's just how spread thin this will be. But this is the exact opposite of the last game. I think this is going to be an absolute shootout between 2 teams. The Chargers defense, so I think they're going to have to score points. I think Keenan Allen's going to be a monster. Amon-Ra should be great. Laporta should get in the end zone as he's been. This should be start everyone. Let's hope this is an absolute shootout.
That's so I hope, but there's a piece of me that I watched Derwin James just kind of go ballistic the last time I watched the Chargers play. Just absolutely destroying dudes across the middle. And I do wonder if those run fits start to, limit what Montgomery can do. I do think he gets in the end zone. I think you're right there. And I kind of think that they're going to have more schemed up touches for Jahmyr Gibbs as screens and, letting him run routes downfield. We've now seen, I think the Travis Etienne wheel route is going to click for Ben Johnson. I think we're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs on a wheel route this week, and Jared Goff's going to hit it. That's what I'm hoping for. I do think that we hit the over, but I think it's close. I think it's more like a, 51 points maybe. Nothing super insane. On the other side of the ball, I don't think you can't play Quentin Johnston, right? Like the matchup kind of says that you can, but like, can you?
Definitely not with confidence. I think if you're, you have a lot of Dolphins, Eagles, Chiefs, like you're sitting so much of your bench is just all people on buys. You've had injuries. I think you can play him. I think it's a pure upside boom bust play. We haven't seen separation. We haven't seen explosion from him. We haven't seen anything that we've seen from him in college. You're hoping that starts to click, especially with an opportunity share there. But when it's not, we know where the ball's going. It's going to Keenan Allen. It's going to Eckler. It's going to the tight ends. That's the only other people that are competing with touches for him. They brought Guyton back, like nothing spectacular there. Like he has every opportunity to shine right now. And if he's not going to do it now, we're not going to be seeing it because this is one of the best matchups he's going to get. I'm still going to take the Lions because I do think it's going to be a close matchup, and that's the ones that the Chargers can never win.
Yeah, but I'm also
over.
But yeah, I was going to go Lions and just barely over. So, yeah, I do find the Quentin Johnston conversation interesting. When I watch him play, he's just thinking. I think he's thinking about what route he has to run in the first place, and then he's not really focusing on winning the route. He wasn't the best route runner in the world, but he had more twitch than he does now. So something's up, and I just think he's developmental. I think it'll take some time. I don't think we'll see it this year, and I actually think Darius Davis could score more fantasy points than him again this week.
Yeah, I will say his college offense was completely schemed around him.
Right.
Around all of his strengths, the ball was in his hands, took him to the college football playoff. It was all really around him. So now it's not for obvious reasons with a much better veteran receiver there. He had a better receiver on the outside. But Quentin Johnston, he can really win in the same way that Mike Williams was. Williams wasn't doing anything crazy. He wasn't breaking down every route tree possible, especially early in his career. It was make a play down the field. I mean, I think Quentin can do that. So I think he just needs to stop thinking a little bit, like you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last game that we're going to talk about, and I don't really know why, other than I don't think we've ever talked about these two teams, and Kyler's back. The Atlanta Falcons are heading out to Arizona. Over-under in this one's 44, and the Falcons are 2-point road favorites. 3 road favorites we selected for the game preview. It's pretty wild. The get-in price for this game is the cheapest across the league. My coworker had asked me to guess who the cheapest to get into was, and I said, oh, gotta be this matchup. But now that probably went up with Kyler returning. So are you starting Kyler this week?
You did hear the teams on bye and all the QB injuries. So a lot of Superflex leagues probably. Like I'm starting Kyler over Deshaun. Like
so I was gonna say, so are you starting him over like Kenny Pickett? Yes. Of course
yes.
you are.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett is like 31 on the list for me this week. Obviously,
that's fair.
With, Danny DeVito being 32.
Yeah, that guy's terrible. Yeah, so I think I would also start Kyler.
2 more weeks till Tyrod.
I hope. They needed to sign Carson Wentz. I don't know what they're doing. No, I think this Cardinals offense is gonna, I think it's gonna take Kyler some time. I will say that this is a different offense for him compared to everything that he's done since college. But I also think that a lot of my issue with Kyler, because I'm people call me a Kyler hater. He hasn't done spectacular things. I think that could partially be because of Cliff Kingsbury. I'm interested to see him in a well-schemed offense, and if he can do it, I think he can. I just think it's probably not against the Falcons, who have low-key their defense is playing pretty well lately.
Yeah, chance James Conner's back. That'll help. I just have confidence in how this coaching staff came out, start the year, Josh Dobbs, 1 week in, we're going to go simple. And it was effective. And they kept it going. They didn't win all those games, obviously, but they were in almost every game. And now you have an actual true elite caliber quarterback when he's played at his absolute best. I don't expect that this week either. But I do think they'll come in with a good game plan. He's got his favorite target, Hollywood Brown, out there. He's been great all year. I think that continues. Mike Wilson, if he is playing, I think he's the type of big body receiver that Kyler's going to love to throw to. McBride's breaking out, like I said, with Connor back. If he is back this week, I think they have a real chance, even against a pretty good defense. Also, I just hate Arthur Smith, so Cardinals in the under. Screw Arthur Smith every day.
Hope he's fine. Are you starting Drake London, who's back off injury this week? Kind of have to,
right? There's a few places I definitely will have to. I don't know, man. He seems to be the only one of the three that has been like kind of, obviously
pushing
the
through
longest
the Arthur
tenured.
Smith.
Yeah, but he's finally like gained trust or something. But undrafted rookie will gain more trust.
Yeah,
nothing makes any sense there. So I do think Drake London should be decent enough. I mean, I think with him back, I want to say you have to sit Pitts. Bijan, you're going to be fine. Hollywood on the other side, obviously lock start. McBride lock start.
Okay. I'm gonna also take the Cardinals to win this one. I'm gonna take the over though. I think this is gonna be. I think the Falcons defense has been playing well, but I think we're gonna see some points scored. I think Bijan's gonna be able to move the ball. I think the Falcons are gonna be able to move the ball in general. So I think it's gonna have to be a high scoring game if the Cardinals want to win. And I think they want to win. I think all teams want to win. So I do wonder how much goes to Connor or just quick game stuff in this first week of Kyler. But
I mean, I have confidence they're going to be working to get him into a rhythm.
Yeah, I think that's
what he needs. Yeah. Does that mean 300 yards and 4 touchdowns? Most likely not. But a win? Probably. I could see it.
My prediction for Kyler's stat line. 229 yards passing, 20 yards rushing, a little light on the rushing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 68% completion. So good, just not great. Good.
It's fair. It's fair. Again, it's another aspect of like they sat him as long as they had to. They made the move with Dobbs because they felt fully ready with him. I don't think, there's going to be any limitations on him. I think this offense is built around not running with the quarterback. So I think that'll be a little bit of a change for Kyler. But Kyler's never, he's trying to avoid the hits. I think he'll be perfectly fine. I do agree. I don't think he's running for 70 yards this week. Don't think he's throwing for 300. Don't think he's throwing for 3 touchdowns, but I don't think you need to against this team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, we're going to get into our against the grain fantasy starts. These are fantasy starts that you might not think of when putting together your lineup. Once again, this is somewhat difficult with all the bye weeks because there are certain players that you might just have to play them. But if you're in like a shallower league, or you still have a ton of your studs playing this week, consider these two players. Randy, who's your against the grain fantasy start this week?
Yeah, I'm going to roll with Khalil Shakir. Gabe Davis, I'm not really trusting. I think Shakir is starting to break out. This Bills offense is really like another weapon away from really being effective again. I think, they need Knox back. Kincaid needs to step up. But I think Shakir's the guy that's been stepping up of late. About a 70% route run rate since week 8. He's had 2 really good weeks, wide receiver 24 and 32. I just think if he's running 75% of routes against the worst corner for the Broncos, you got Diggs over against one of the best corners in the league and Pat Surtain. I think a lot of attention's going over there, and I think Shakir can really make up, the difference, make big plays in the primetime game. Josh Allen's going to be coming out swinging. I think, I very comfortably would rank him as a, back end wide receiver 3, which is flex viable. But I do think he has a wide receiver 2 upside this week. And top end at that, I do think he has a great chance to get to the end zone. I'm really confident in playing him this week.
Yep. I told you before we started that I hopped into the doc and I was like, Khalil Shakir looks good. And then you had already taken him. So this is another one of those where I agree. I'm playing him in certain spots. I picked him up in a redraft to just throw him into my flex and hope. But feels like a good week for that. So mine is Jaylen Warren. Now, this isn't like super against the grain because I think a lot of people have just started playing Jaylen Warren and hoping that he has a big game. But over the last 2 weeks, 11 fantasy points per game. But the main thing is super, super efficient with his touches. So 6.7 yards per carry. Yards per carry isn't something that I'd like to rely on, but I think it's very clear on film that Jaylen Warren is the most explosive back that the Steelers have. This week, they're playing the Green Bay Packers, who give up a ton of yards on the ground, 124 yards on the ground. That's 9th worst in the NFL. And so I do think that this is one of those games where if Jaylen Warren finds the end zone, I think we could be talking about a top 12 guy. And, all you have to do is toss him into your flex and in most cases. And I honestly would probably flex Jaylen Warren over a lot of receivers, even in PPR leagues, because of that fact. I think he's going to have, maybe 60, 70 yards on the ground at minimum. And I think he's going to slide into the end zone. He's been catching some balls as well. I think he's got massive upside. This could be a week where I'm not, a hot take artist here, but he could take over for Najee. Najee has not been efficient with his touches. And I think maybe that snap share starts to kind of close up a little bit. So Jaylen Warren, put him in your lineup.
Yeah, he's been crazy efficient this year. He's very explosive. The Packers give up some of the most bottom 10 against explosive, plays, bottom 10 against tackle tabs, highest yards after contact. This is also enough for a Warren explosion game. His only kickback right now is he's not getting goal line touches, and it's the only thing keeping Najee Harris on a team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, at this point, he is Mike Tolbert. And that's a compliment to Najee. Don't get it wrong. Jaylen Warren has been by far the better running back. This team needs more explosion, especially with yet another diva wide receiver. He needs to step up this week. I think he has a great chance. And we know Green Bay in the second half of games somehow tries to play offense again. So I think they're going to need him to capitalize and make a big play. I'm getting real tired of seeing Najee ranked higher than Jaylen Warren every week. I think this is yet another week where he can put that to bed.
Yeah. And I'll give Najee credit, 13 points per game in those 2 weeks compared to Jaylen Warren's 11.
By falling in like a quarter
exactly.
window.
Exactly. And that's why context is important, right? Like Warren has been the better back. I do think we see that flip this week, and it should stay that way if the Steelers want to move the football. I'll put it that way. So,
Yeah.
All right, Randy. Anything else before we get out of here today?
No. Let's watch some college football with maybe all the head coaches. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we should have kicked off with the Michigan thing, but I'm kind of tired of it already.
I don't care.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, good luck in your guys' matchups this week. We will be back. Like I said, make sure you like this video if you enjoyed it and comment below. Let us know why we're stupid or why you disagree with us, or
I know why I'm stupid. I don't know why.
Yeah, but you can remind him in the comments.
I do need it sometimes.
Yeah, and if you guys are on the podcast, make sure you head over to YouTube and subscribe over there. If you're on YouTube, make sure you head to the podcast, The Devil Royale. Just search it in your favorite podcast app. We'll be back next week for Week 11. Thank you guys for watching. We'll talk to you next time.